So hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm in somewhere called Askam, which is on the Furness Peninsula in the southern tip of Cumbria. And I'm looking on this beautiful, glorious sunny day up at this wonderful view up the bay towards the Lake District, the mountains and the fells of the Lake District there. But I'm not come here just to look at that. I've come to look at this big boat over there. This is Oakdale. It's a Mersey Flat and it's a historic boat, and it's at the start of a new and exciting journey. So I've made it up here in December to take a look at it. Yeah, so it's the 10th of December 2021 and this is really the start of a new adventure for Oakdale, a historic Mersey Flat, because it's at the start of a restoration period. And it's nice to get here before that period has started, at the early stages of that restoration. So picked a beautiful day for it so far. The weather's doing well, it's not too cold. So let's get down and take a look at Oakdale. Right, so yes, this is the Oakdale, and it's a magnificent old Mersey Flat. You can see the name still on there. It's beached here at Askam, and I'll tell you about the story of it as we go around, but just look at it from here. Look at the workmanship into the wood there. It's got a hell of a story. So just here on the prow you can see these numbers carved in there. 4, that's number 4, I can make that one out. Probably painted at one time. You can see how much it's decayed over the years there. But yeah, we're going to have a look round properly and yeah, see what we can make of it. Now last summer I did a video on the last Mersey Flats and went looking for these rare and endangered boats, or what's left of them. And in that I learnt that Mersey Flats were the regional working ship for Cheshire, Lancashire and Merseyside, the unsung heroes of the Industrial Revolution in this part of the country, carrying all sorts of goods up and down the many rivers and canals of the region. Now they were necessary because the River Mersey has the second highest tidal range in the UK, meaning that larger seagoing ships struggled to get very far beyond the port of Liverpool when heading up the river. So shallower boats had to be developed that could carry goods deep inland and up rivers and the newly developed canals. Famously, of course, the Sankey Viaduct on the Liverpool to Manchester Railway was built with Mersey Flats in mind. Their huge sails taken into consideration by engineer George Stephenson. The flats were so good at their job that they survived the coming of the railways and increased in number all the way until the early 20th century, when that number slowly began to decline. Now in that video I found the remains of Daresbury on the River Weaver, the oldest surviving flat, built in 1772. Nearby were also other remains in this strange boat graveyard. And I also mentioned that there were 2 of these boats left intact, the MOSSDALE and the Oakdale. Now I went to visit the MOSSDALE at the National Waterways Museum over at Ellesmere Port, and I didn't really think much about the Oakdale because it's 100 odd miles away and it's privately owned. And then I heard that the Oakdale was in a pretty bad way and in need of saving, and that there were a group of people rallying around to do just that. So I invited myself along, and as somebody who knows very little about boats, I suddenly found myself driving up the motorway to Askam to take a look at this rare and wonderful old boat. Right, so here we are, this is it. So this was, it's been here for a number of years and it's been up and down with the tide. The tide usually comes to about there, where the black boards finish. In 2020 there was a big storm and the gentleman who lived on it, Dave, had to be evacuated, and the boat was really damaged quite badly. And this patchwork of wood here is temporary, been put on by Dave just to keep it from flooding. You can see he's started to repair some of the wood, started to replace some of the wood down here. This is a larch, I've been told. So one thing straight away which is amazing about it is the wood. Look at the pattern of the wood there, look how it's cut, look how it's made. It's carville built, so all the planks are straight to each other, but look at the workmanship into that wood there as it sweeps round into this curve at the front there. Just bending the wood like that, steam bending, or however they did it. Just fantastic. So yeah, here you can see, this is the other side, you can see how much the storm damage over the years has really affected. You can see there's a big plank missing down there where when the tide comes in, which it will do about 4 o'clock today, it'll breach that and enter the boat again. You can see on the top up there, there's a lot of junk, a lot of weight, and that is to weigh the boat down, and that's at the back. Most of the weight is at the back to keep the front up. But yes, that needs to be on there. It can't be cleared too much because the boat needs ballast. It needs to be kept in its place a little bit. It is roped off. It is roped into the ground. I love how some of it is surviving really well. Some of it is just still there and it's just defiantly staying there. And the rest just looks like rubbish. But each little thing up there has got its own little story and it's part of this boat's history. Launched in the relatively recent year of 1951 at the Castle Rock yard of Richard Abel & Sons in Runcorn, Oakdale was the second to last Mersey flat ever constructed. Its sister ship, the Ruth Bate, was the last Mersey flat of all, but sadly has already been scrapped. By the early 20th century, the construction of Mersey flats had evolved significantly so that now nearly all new ones were composite. That is, wooden planking over strong steel frames. The amount of steel used in the framing affects how much cargo it can carry, and also how strong it is against the push and pull of moving water. Significantly, Oakdale is not only the last remaining composite Mersey flat, but also one of 4 surviving seagoing working vessels built in a composite manner, the Cutty Sark in London being one of the others. It is also the last known surviving commercial seagoing vessel built in Runcorn, her steel frame making it possible for rare journeys across the coast of North Wales or up to southern Cumbria. Amazingly, this is actual footage of Oakdale in a Merseyside police recruitment film from 1958, being hauled along in Stanley Docks. However, Oakdale was used by the company that built it for their own purposes, transporting grain mostly up and down the Mersey and the Weaver. When the company ceased trading in 1963, she was sold to another company called Rays, who used her largely as a floating pontoon, storing things like coal, oils, paints, etc. Like many flats, she was then kind of forgotten about, left to slowly rot in the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. Then, in 1976, a man called Dave Keenan bought her for just £400, with the intention of restoring and transforming her into a houseboat. Dave had worked on boats for over 40 years, from the age of just 14, and when he bought it, it had been stripped of key parts such as the pumps and the windlass. Dave managed to get lots of replacements from scrapyards. By the way, Oakdale never had a mast originally, this one was just added on. Dave brought Oakdale to Askam where things are a little more peaceful, and over the years refitted the boat to make it more livable. But inevitably it began suffering wear and tear, and began leaking. Then in March 2020, a force 10 storm hit the region and Oakdale began to flood faster than water could be pumped out. Now sinking, Oakdale had to be abandoned by Dave and his dog Jody, who were dramatically rescued by the independent lifeboat station at Askam. Residents of the village then wonderfully came together to help and look after Dave as best they could. Sadly, Oakdale was now uninhabitable, her damage just too much to repair without a major overhaul. So yes, we're going to go inside now. We're going to show you this wonderful interior, which is just like taking a step back in time. Right, so I've come down these stairs now and I'm inside the boat. This is at the rear of the boat, and everywhere you look, there's just something absolutely amazing to look at. So first of all, you can see planks missing down there. That's where the floodwater's getting in when the tide comes in. I'm sure the tide will come in about 4 o'clock today, 4:30. But all these little details, thermometer there, This is the crew's quarters at the back. Apparently 3 people could have stayed in here, or were registered to stay in here. It's all flooded with rubbish now. Wow. Yeah, it's just, this is amazing. So this, behind the camera over here, is the workshop. So this is where Dave used to have all his tools and repair the boat as the years went by. Electronics on the wall over there. This is the tools. Over here, beautiful details. Look at this light switch there. So you can imagine all the cargo being in this area during its working life, during the boat's working life. But however, it's in recent years, or in the years gone by, it's been renovated and it's been given this bar. It's got a bar, including Tetley's bitter down there and an actual bar, circuit breakers on the wall over there, plates and cutlery down at the back over there. So it was transformed into somewhere nice, a livable place. And now, of course, it's been abandoned, unfortunately, and it's just left this eerie, ghostly atmosphere to it. And there's just everywhere, there's something fantastic to look at. In this middle room, you can also see these long steel beams running the length of the boat. And above the bar is the old 8-foot tiller from the Ruth Bate, giving a clue as to how tough it would have been steering a boat like this, especially in the rough sea currents. Now you might be wondering what I'm walking on. If this boat has been damaged so much, it's been sat here on the silt for so long, and it's been damaged in a storm, what am I actually walking on? Well, actually, the floor is still quite solid, not completely. There's a lot of silt in here. As you can see, it is muddy and silty. If I walk over here, you can see the gaps. There are planks missing. And actually, what I'm stood on right now is one of the old sails, which isn't that old. But yeah, the old sail down there. But yeah, so this is the rearmost room now. I'll move over into the light a bit. So this is the front. This is the front room. So the front of the boat, and you can see it has just been devastated. This has all been fallen and collapsed over the years with the damage, and moved about as the water comes in here and shifts everything about. But it's just a treasure trove of amazing things. Big row of videos up there, VHS videos. Old TV over there, first aid, washing line. It's just fantastic. And the old skylight up there. I think outside it's raining really heavily, but you can see I'm quite dry. You can see here that how this boat is made. So you've got obviously the lateral planks going across, but you've got steel ribs, if you like, running here, there, running all along the body of the boat, and they're down here as well. So you can see one there, whoops, running across, that's a steel beam. So that is the entire width of the boat. It's got these steel ribs. So this is the bow of the boat, and at the very end we can see this small room, probably another quarters where somebody would have slept, but also a great opportunity to see just how well this part of the boat has survived. As you can see, it's all dry in here with a solid outer shell. You can also see this long number carved into the beam above. 63 is the weight of the boat in tons. It's nice to be on here and not just see it as a boat, as being on the inside of a boat, but actually see it as a living place, something very personalised. More videos up here. Pictures on the wall. This is where somebody lived for a long time, and it's only recently they've had to abandon it because of the tide, because of the storms, basically. So this is a real privilege for me to be stood here today. It's such a wonderful thing to be stood inside this old boat, the last Mersey flat, such a forgotten workhorse of the industrial age, just a forgotten, neglected. Nobody really cares about Mersey Flats, and it's just wonderful. And to see it as it is now, to see it at its lowest ebb, to see it at the point where it couldn't get any worse, do you know what I mean, without being scrapped. And imagining the prospect of this being restored and the bright future it could have. There could be people stood in here in 10-20 years where this is all renovated, this is all beautiful, and it's got lights in it, and it's all nice wood and new panelling and all sorts. Kids learning in here, school teachers giving lessons in here. It's just fantastic. It's strange to be stood in here now as it is, but yeah, I feel so privileged. Now, I actually met Dave on my visit up to Askam. I know he didn't want to be on camera. He was a very knowledgeable, fascinating guy, very generous man. And he's okay now. He's living on another boat in the bay. And as well as sharing all this wealth of knowledge, this lifetime of boating, shipping knowledge with me, of which I have none, by the way, he still has, naturally, a lot of affection for Oakdale. And I actually asked him what he'd like to see become of her, and he was very honest. He said there are two choices, really. You can either take it out of the water, stick it in a shed, and use it as a kind of a template to build a replica, plank by plank. Or two, you could try and restore the whole thing, but that would mean replacing virtually all of it, one piece at a time. So it's an enormous undertaking that the guys who've now taken it on are going to have to face. As Dave said, virtually the whole thing is going to have to be replaced piece by piece, plank by plank. But this is a boat built to last about 50 years, yet here it is 7 decades later. And that's thanks to Dave, who's looked after it for 45 of those years and made sure that it survived where all the rest, bar MOSSDALE, were scrapped or left to disintegrate. But if you really think about it, it's not just the last of its kind, it also represents generation after generation of heritage that people in both Merseyside and Manchester all used to share. If you think of the tens of thousands of people who used to work on boats like Oakdale over the centuries. But not only that, but the skilled craftsmanship that go into building a boat like Oakdale, which we just don't really have in Britain anymore. Well, Oakdale is symbolic of this working class perspective on history. It's got more heritage value to it, to Merseyside, than half the paintings in a Liverpool art gallery. That's why I think, personally, it's important that we see Oakdale restored, and I really, really want to see it take to the waters once more. So So there you go, that's the Oakdale, and I'm so thankful to be able to come here and take a look at it close up, and yes, and see how it gets on in the future. I'm going to come back when I can, when it's being moved and when it's being taken away, and when more work is being done on it as well. So yeah, let's hope that that's not a long road ahead. Let's hope to see this beautiful boat back where it belongs, and it's all its seafaring glory. But yes, thanks for joining me on this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.